Okay, so we are recording. Thank you guys. Appreciate you all for attending our inaugural coaching development program. And today we're going to tackle a pretty good topic for a lot of people, which is on the mental side of the game and keeping players engaged and keeping them confident and working on the mental aspect of it. I'm Ricardo Martinez. I am on the Mustang board. I am I oversee the boys competitive program on the board. I'm joined today by John Doyle and Lexi Martinez, no relation, again, that we know of. So I'm going to turn it over to John and Lexi to go through our program today. If you guys want to, I'm going to be monitoring the chat area. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to chat, include the question in the chat board, or feel free just to make this as interactive as possible, and feel free to open up your lines and to ask the question as you need to. We want to make sure that this is interactive, and then we'll just kind of go from there. So I'll turn it over to John.
All right. Well, I want to welcome the coaches again. This is our first go at it. And I'd like to welcome Alexi Martinez. Alexi Martinez came to us from Texas and came out here to get his master's degree in sports psychology. And I had the opportunity to talk to him about some of the new topics, new things that are going on in that field. And I thought it would be interesting for our coaches to listen to what he has to say and gain some knowledge. So Alexi, the floor is all yours.
Sweet. Let me share my screen here. So thanks, Ricardo, Joe, and John for setting this up. I appreciate it. 1 second. Let me hit where we got this. Is that it? Are we good? Everyone can see that?
Yes.
Sweet. So yeah, coach development should be a consistent thing, should be a constant thing. I think everyone has something to offer. So I think this platform is pretty cool. Hopefully we can keep it going, and different coaches can come up on here and kind of share what they have to offer. I learn a lot just watching Joe coach. I watch Fred coach a lot, Pat as well, DeCumbus. There's a lot of coaches, Oscar Juan. I learn a lot, and everyone has something to offer. And I think this is what I have to offer. I think having a great set mindset really helps add on to your technical ability, tactical ability, your physical ability on the field. So combining both can really strengthen what an athlete can, strengthen their performance. So I played club soccer growing up. I played in Austin, Texas. I hear an echo. Does everyone hear the echo? We're all good? Ricardo, we're all good?
Sounds good.
Yep. Okay. I played club growing up. I played D2 at a small school called Rollins College in Orlando. I played professionally at Dukes La Pese in Mexico. It's in Chiapas. And so I've had experience, and I've dipped my toes in a bunch of different areas. And now this is my second year coaching at Mustang. Currently get my master's degree in sports psychology next month, getting my doctorate in clinical psychology with a concentration in neuropsychology. So the mind psychology is just huge with me. It's something that I'm living by. It's something that I want to approach my coaching with. So my ultimate goal of this presentation of doing this is to basically prepare our youth adolescent athletes to obviously improve their soccer development, but how can they implement and apply this outside of sport? So they're in sport an hour and a half a day. So what about the rest of the 22 hours? There's application. There's things that players learn through their youth development, things that they learn from the coaches, things that they learn from their environment that they can apply in their classrooms, in their future lives, and in their work. And so that's basically what I want everyone to take away from this. So I worked closely with a colleague of mine. His name is Dr. Dan. He is a Stanford sports psychologist. and he came up with a really cool 3-brain concept. I was fascinated. I was shadowing him at Monterey Bay State University for the men's soccer team. And it was really cool to watch him present and use colors to really grasp the attention of the kids, of the athletes. Colors is a great way to really pull their attention and get them to buy into what it is that you want to sell, what you want them to buy into what you're saying. So these brains are not necessarily linear. So I'm going to start with a red brain. That's what I always do with I coached 2010 girls and 2010 boys, and I hit the red brain. I hit them with the red brain first. And the red brain is basically when an athlete reacts without processing or thinking. So they lose attention, they think irrationally. You're not exactly thinking about your actions. You're so caught up in the moment. You don't even think about basically what your action is going to be. You just do something quickly, regardless of whether that's something negative or positive. And it's not good to think irrationally. And so, the kids are like, oh, I've had kids tell me, look, coach, I was in red brain just then. So some kids are able to recognize that they reacted, that they thought irrationally, that they, and this is something that they can use in the classroom as well, or say at home and dad tells the kid, hey, can you take the trash out? Kid throws his hands up, says something, screams at dad. They're in red brain. They're not thinking. They're just acting without thinking. And as this is applicable to sport, it's also applicable outside of sport, which is my goal. I'm going to skip green brain for now. So these brains I mentioned, they're not necessarily linear. You don't go from red to green to gold. They're just a little bit scattery, but it's a gold brain. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of being in a state of flow. So the gold brain is when you're in a hyper-focused state. Athletes typically experience the gold brain when they're in their peak performance. So I always tell my kids, think about what is the best performance you've ever had. Take yourself back to that moment. You were in gold brain. How would you like to experience that gold brain more? The kids buy into it. They want to experience that gold brain. They want to experience that success over and over. So basically, this is the way I sell it. I want them to live in gold brain. I want them to experience gold brain. And then I hit them with the importance of living in the green brain. The green brain is the learning brain. It's the thinking brain. It's the processing brain. It's when they're in a classroom and a teacher's teaching the vocabulary words, the teacher's teaching timetables, division. They're in green brain. When a coach is telling them to check their shoulders, to use the inside, the outside of their foot, the tactical part of the game. When a coach is teaching something, they are currently in the green brain. Now, you need to live in the green brain in order to experience the gold brain as much as possible. So whenever I'm teaching something, whenever I'm coaching the kids, I use this green brain to my advantage. I tell them that they're in green brain right now because they want to get into that gold brain, because they want to experience that gold brain. They want to experience that peak performance. So the only way is to listen to their coaches, listen to their parents, listen to their teachers, and buy into every single step that the coaches, the teachers are offering. So yeah, this is just an example. It's my creative way of getting a buy-in from the kids. And if they take away one thing from this, I think that's a win for me. That's a win. If they think about, hey, coach, I was in red brain just then. At least now they're aware that they shouldn't be reacting without really thinking about what they want to do. Anyone have any questions about this 3-brain concept that I have? No hands raised. Ricardo?
Nope, nothing. I have one though. How do you if you recognize that a player is in that red brain status, what are some tips or tricks to get them out of that, where they're not thinking and they're not focused, and obviously they're not able to provide their peak performance or even have an ability to open themselves up to learning? What is there anything that you recommend to get them out of that, or to help them recognize that and acknowledge it?
I think it's very situational. It depends on the situation, but say during the game, if you know, once they come off the field, I kind of explain the you know, just no player wants to hear, hey, try breathing. You know, that can make a player upset. So I try to help them cool down, and then after I give them some sort of breathing technique that they can use. Obviously, it's during a soccer game, so they can't just sit and meditate on the field. But a quick breathing technique, a quick you know, something to tell themselves when they experience a negative situation, they can use some sort of self-talk, some sort of cue to remind them to not react without thinking, processing. Does that make sense? Yeah, so it's very situational. It depends on the situation, but you know, just kind of let them settle down, and then, you know, give them a couple minutes, and then take them to the side and explain the benefits of breathing. Yeah. So my next slide. So there's a ton of different topics that I like to touch on. These are 5 of them. I'm sure everyone's heard of all of these, and actually, goal setting is pretty popular now, which is really cool. A lot of people are using goal setting. A lot of people set goals, and I think that's amazing. It's amazing how much it's growing. People are implementing it into their lives, into coaching. Athletes do it at work. The problem is a lot of people fail to set short range goals. And short range goals are used to motivate. You know, when a player sets a short term goal and accomplishes that and is successfully completing these short range goals, they can visually see improvements, and it motivates them to continue with these goals, to continue to reach their long range goal, basically. So setting a long range goal is unbelievable. We all want to win championships. We all want to win league. But how do we get there? You know, what are the steps that you need to take to reach that long range goal? The next slide, it's specifically, I have 2 worksheets on goal setting, and I'll continue to speak about that then. My next topic is focus and concentration. I think when an athlete misses a penalty kick, when they do something bad, or they think it's bad, when they make a mistake, it's easy for a coach. I've done it a lot of times. I'm sure a lot of coaches do it. It's easy to say, hey, don't think about it. Just move on to the next play. While your intentions are great, you should not think about it. You know, it's better to it's better to move to the next play, obviously, because that's what's relevant. The next play is what's relevant. Missing the penalty kick, missing a shot, missing a 1v a sitter, those are all, they already happened. They're irrelevant. What's relevant is defending. That's what you need to do next. And I mean, I'm guilty of doing that. I do that too much, and so in order to gain that refocus after you've messed up, there's certain things that you can do. There's verbal cues, physical cues, your breathing exercises, like I mentioned before. I always tell myself, it's okay. You know, let's move on to the next. That's what I tell myself to regain my focus, to remove myself from the irrelevant and push on to what's actually relevant. So that's something that I do. That's something that, you know, you can help our athletes with. It's hard to just for an athlete, even for us, to just not focus on. I mean, you know, if anyone invests in the stock market, You lose a couple thousand, but that already happened. Now you have to move on to the next thing. What's your next step? So that's basically what I'm getting at. It's looking at what's relevant rather than learning from the past and looking at what's truly relevant in the situation. So confidence is my next topic. It's usually I think the best way to, in my experience, the best way to help a kid develop confidence is reminding them of their past performances. So letting them know that they've been able to do it before and this is how they did it and they did it successfully. So why can't they do that again? So this kind of, they're able to see that they can do it. So it's a positive and optimistic approach. They can see that they've done it before. And so it motivates them to, they know that they're capable. So this is, that's one way of increasing confidence in adolescent athletes. I think a huge one as well is letting the athletes know that their thoughts affect their feelings, which affect their behaviors, affect their performances. So if a player's thinking about something negative, they start feeling in a negative way. They start feeling a negative vibe, which therefore doesn't set them up for success. It's difficult to be successful if you're thinking in a negative state of mind constantly. So again, using some sort of self-talk, some sort of cue to remind them, to snap out of that and to remove them from the past and get them to feel confident. There's many different ways. I listen to Back in Black. I did that right before this presentation to help me feel confident, and I think it's working. But everyone has their different ways, and so I think giving your players ideas of what to do, listening to music, telling themselves, I can do this, I can do this. There's a lot of different ways that the players can do it. Coping with stress. So stress, high levels of physiological arousal can, it can impact anybody. As an athlete, if you're feeling stress, science proves that when you're feeling stress, your body tenses, which means you're not in your fluidity way. You can't really perform like you would if you're feeling stressed. Again, breathing exercises. Actually, I do this breathing exercise. I call it a 5-to-1 count, where you basically breathe in, and that's number 5. When you breathe out, you breathe in a 4th time, and you tell yourself as you're breathing out that you're calmer now than you were at number 5. You breathe back in. That's number 3. Once you're breathing out, you tell yourself, I'm calmer than I was when I was at 4. So you keep going down, and it's actually kind of funny. It's like maybe even if the breathing itself doesn't get you to calm down, you start to think about the breathing rather than the stimuli that is causing you to feel that stress. So obviously there's science behind more oxygen to the blood, and it strengthens your muscles. There's a lot of things to it, but I think just thinking about the breathing technique itself helps a player not think about the stress, the stimuli, and therefore reduces your stress levels. So breathing is amazing. Now, obviously, in the middle of a game, you can't pause for a minute and try this breathing technique. But there's different ways, that there's different cues, different tools that you can use. My last topic, it's on communication. Pretty cool stat: 70% of communication is nonverbal. So as a coach, your facial expressions, your body language, it impacts how your athletes interpret your messages. So it's always best to kind of try to match what you're saying with your body language. I always like to use this example. If you're down 2-0 and you decide to sit down, put your hands over your face, the players can see that. And I don't think that's really helping them feel confident that they can win the game, even if there's 10 minutes left. So that's paying attention to your body language, is your tone of voice is important. It impacts adolescent athletes. It impacts all of us. And then it's no secret that generations have become more sensitive. That's just, I guess that's my opinion, but that's what I've been seeing. Generations have become more and more sensitive, and I guess it's also good to remind the athletes that the things you were saying as a coach, it's to help. It's to help them improve. It's not necessarily, it maybe you screamed at them from across the field. Well, how else are you supposed to get that message across? They're far away, and so maybe pull a kid to the side and explain to them, hey, I don't mean it in a personal way. I don't mean to hurt you. I want to help you. So just reminding them that, I think, is very important. Any questions on this slide? I apologize for keeping these topics pretty short. I mean, I can talk about each one of these for a couple hours. But yeah, these are just kind of a brief overview of each of them.
Yeah, and if anybody has questions while Lexi's bringing up the next slide, feel free to just drop them in the chat, and I'm monitoring that too if you guys have some questions. How do you, what are some obviously I've been guilty of it too, catching myself in the moment on the nonverbal communication side, and I know that's extremely important as kids recognize and look at us as coaches. Any tips or tricks that you have there on just being able to catch ourselves, remind ourselves in the moment of what the reality of our situation is, and we're not playing for the World Cup here and stuff like that, but just things to help coaches kind of catch themselves, with those nonverbal cues that you were talking about.
Right. So as a coach, I have Google Earth on my phone, and I kind of pinch it. I pinch the earth and realize that it's okay. There's a lot more things going on in this world, and I pull myself out of that moment. I also look at the sky. It's a massive world. There's lots of things going on. Don't get caught up right in that moment that's triggering you, that you want to say something, you want to so I kind of just like to look at something that's blue. It takes me away from that mentality of being in the red brain, thinking of saying something that I may regret, saying something that won't be beneficial for the athletes. Does that answer your question? Sweet. So that's my sort of way of getting past that. These are 2 worksheets. I can have we'll see if Joe or Pat could send this over to all the coaches. I've shared it with some of the coaches, and these are 2 worksheets that I like to use. So on the left side, there's a performance profile. Obviously, if your age group, if you're not allowed a head, you can just scratch out the heading one. But the players rate themselves where they think they're at. So the coach doesn't do this. The players do it themselves. Once they've circled where they're at, they're able to go down to the performance chart. They can shade it in. They can visually see where they're at and where they think they want to be. They can see how much space they need of improvement. On the right side is the goal setting sheet. They're able to drag a category, or the goal setting sheet. I have it there. It's pretty simple. I have an explanation of what it is up there. I made it as simple as possible. Nothing. Terminology is pretty basic for the athletes, for adolescent athletes. They don't need to know all the different terminology on it. Basically, drag a category that they want to improve on. They put it right on there. So mine, for example, is passing. I'm at a 6. Coach Oscar said I suck at it, so I need to get myself to a 7, which is my goal. I want to get to a 7. Coach Oscar told me that leaning forward over the ball will keep the ball on the ground. And so this is just an example the kids can see, and they get to drag their own category up on the right side. Now these worksheets, I think it's similar to what I mentioned before. it's easy to give a kid a worksheet and, here are your goals, set your goals, put it on your door so you see it every day. Um, I think it's important as coaches to remind them whenever you can. So, for example, if a player's struggling with their dribbling, if you see that their dribbling has improved, that you mention it to them. That's positive reinforcement. That's letting them know that, hey, you've obviously been working outside of training, and good for you. I can see the improvement. What was it you wanted to get from a 5 to a 7? Wow. Okay. So where do you think you're at now? Are you almost at your goal? Have you completed any of your short range goals? And then this just kind of it doesn't have to be a 10-minute conversation. It can just be a brief 30-second kind of thing with any of your players. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have. I'm hoping we can do some more, so I can touch on some more of these in more depth. Anyone have any questions? I think we hit the 30-minute mark.
Lexi, thank you very much. Appreciate it. I think I like that idea on communication. So strong with young players, and they always look up to us, and sometimes getting down to their level helps. I know John taught me that. So thanks a lot for your time today.
Let me see if I can get you guys. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. Hey, just a couple things to follow up. I think any information that as coaches, as people that we can take in, it's always good to take the information, and you can always do with what you want to do with that information. I think everyone is different, and every person, every player is different in how they take information and what motivates them, and how you push their buttons and how you make them perform at a high level, whether it be a 6-year-old or a 40-year-old in business. What I would say is that you should always make sure that Alexi talked about giving kids cues in the games, talking to them, hey, on to the next play, that kind of stuff, that doesn't necessarily work all the time. And what you want to make sure you do is that during your practices, you make your practices like the game. It can't be that you have one attitude at the game and then you have one attitude at practice, where practice is low key and you don't talk to the kids and you don't raise your voice. And then all of a sudden you get into a game situation and now you're screaming and yelling. So your practices should be the same as your games. You should have the same enthusiasm, the same coaching style. So when you scream across the field at a young player in practice, you can stop and go, look, I'm not yelling at you. I can't get your attention. But if they never hear that in practice where you truly can stop it, then in the game, when you're screaming across the field, they think you're mad at them. So again, make your practices the same as your games, and keep your even in a practice, you have much more opportunity to coach in practice than you do in the game. And again, thank you, Alexi. I thought that was awesome.
I think,
Thank you.
again, Lexi, great job on this. There's a couple things that, especially in the years of coaching, you get, shoot, this is my 20th, or I'm even probably even past that. But there's things that you can do. Self-reflection is quite a bit. So after a match, or after a training, think about, how your responses were to players. Did you get the right actions coming from your players? Did you get the right action coming from an individual? Maybe you were loud at one point. What was their cue coming back to you? What did you see from their body reaction? As Lexi was talking about, could you see anything? Did you see, their play go down? Did you see their play rise? But I think the biggest thing that I find is, the self-reflection of yourself as a coach. Well, how did I sound to that player after the match? Did I make my team anxious? Did I make that player anxious so that they couldn't perform at that, with that no stress environment? And again, I think we're all guilty of that in some way or another. And you just try to kind of, self-reflect as much as you can and just say, okay, how did that come out? Was I calm on the sideline? Was I motivating but calm. So I think those things are very important when you get into your coaching styles, and just as John was talking about, your training environment. If they see in your training environment that you're very much like that, and it comes into the game and you're creating that kind of atmosphere, and they know what they want from you, and that's the key. If you get new players coming in your team, they might not be like the old players who get you. And so it's very important that everybody is on that. Self-reflecting, I think, is taught me quite a bit. But I love this, Lex. I think it's great. I thank you for doing it, very much so. So thanks again.
Yeah, if I could just add one piece to this, Lexi, thank you. I think you hit on a really good point in the goal setting about a lot of people not setting short-term goals. They miss out on that. And I think that one aspect could be really helpful for everybody right now, considering we're not playing games and we're in a really different situation as coaches and for our players, that a lot of times our goals are set on games, and how we grow and how we measure each other and how we keep kids accountable throughout a season to keep pushing themselves in their practices, because we have a game to relate so much to. So one thing that I think is interesting is with goal setting with your teams, which could be a great exercise, is giving them some weekly ones or training session of tasks, things like this, that we can help the kids feel some sort of a motivation to get through training sessions right now that for some of them can be very difficult based on the limitations we're placed under. So even, Lexi and I spoke last week about all this, and goal setting for me as a player was a big part of my playing career, and how you, I think, translate that as a coach to the kids nowadays. You can be really helpful in them setting not only weekly goals, but day by day goals as they go through your training sessions, and then compliment them on completing these tasks, because that's going to go into their confidence, and that's going to keep them excited and motivated to get through this really, really tough stretch of time we're in. Because let's face it, everyone really misses the fact that we can't get excited to play soccer games. That's the biggest thing. So we have to get them excited to train and make that fun. And so I think that's an important one. So that's a great little point you made there, Lexi. Everyone focuses on these big long-term goals, and sometimes we miss the short-term ones, which can give us a lot of feeling of accomplishment pretty quickly. So thanks again. Great job, Lexi.
Good comments, guys. Anybody else, any other coaches have any other comments or questions? All right. Well, thanks again, Lexi, for leading this our inaugural coaching development program webinar. We're going to have more. Stay tuned. We will post this as I mentioned at the beginning of the session, and then be on the lookout for additional. We're going to try to do them every twice a month. The next one we'll try to do in the afternoon and evaluate kind of the attendance on that one. If you have any topics that you would like to see discussed, please go ahead and email them to me. My email address is on the Mustang website under the board of directors, and it's Ricardo Martinez again. So feel free to reach out. And again, thanks everybody for attending, and we appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next one. Thanks.